Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel for Catch. My name is Sam and I'm the founder and lead coach here at Catch. Unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything that you want in life and dating. So on this channel we talk about everything to do with confidence, mindset and how to utilise that in your dating and relationship life. So just a short video today which is about we cannot always understand how someone feels about us purely based on their behaviour. And what do we mean by that? Well, we've done another video before called If They Wanted To, They Would, and that quote that's bandied around a lot in the dating world, and essentially debunking this, because there's something in psychology called projection, which is we assume as humans that other people would respond to situations in the way that we would respond to them. And therefore, if someone really liked us, this is how they would behave. And we assume that they would behave in a way that we would act if we really liked someone. And we also did another video on attachment styles and how attachment theory is one of the things which can affect how we show up, particularly in dating, and if we're triggered, and how we respond to different triggers and different dating situations based on our attachment style and past or childhood experiences. And we can spend so much time in dating, well, in all areas of life really, but particularly dating, focusing on other people's behaviour and trying to decode it and decipher it and figure out, okay, based on this behaviour, do they like us or not? Should I invest more time or not? What does this mean? And we would caution against that, because sometimes we can see the behaviour of someone, and let's take an example of someone who isn't texting us a lot, whereas we like lots of texting, as a small example. We might look at that and jump to a conclusion that they have an avoidant attachment style, or they're not that interested in us because if they wanted to, they would. Or, you know, they just don't care about us enough. And when we create those stories, a couple of things can happen. Say we assume that they have an avoidant attachment style, and we jump to that conclusion, and we talked about this in the attachment video as well. We might end up trying to really understand people with avoidant attachment styles and then adjust our behaviour in a way that complements someone with an avoidant attachment style, rather than think about, well, I really like lots of texting. They don't seem to be texting me a lot. Is this making me happy? And instead, all this energy is going on to understanding them, making assumptions about them and adapting our behaviour, rather than really going internally and going, well, is this the kind of partner I want? Is this the kind of dynamic that I want to set up? Is this making me happy or not? And then thinking about, you know, how to take an action based on that. And our last video actually was about how to respond to different dating situations, and particularly texting. So, you know, how do we respond based on what we want, right? Rather than assuming for them. Or we could look at someone who's not texting a lot and say, okay, well, maybe they're just not into me enough. Or, you know, if they wanted to, they would. All right, fair enough. Get the premise behind that quote. It means, you know, don't waste your energy or time on someone who isn't that into us. Okay, again, fair enough. You might decide based on that conclusion, okay, they're not texting me a lot, so they're not that into me, that you're going to move on. All right, that's a fair enough decision to make. However, what we might end up internalizing is that, you know, we're not chosen, we're not loved, we weren't good enough for that person. We might end up feeling rejected, all because we've assumed that because they're not texting us a lot, that they're not that into us. Or again, we might look at someone that doesn't text a lot, and we could instead make a positive assumption. Okay, maybe they are into me, but they have read online about playing hard to get, and so they're playing hard to get. Or actually I make them nervous and that's why they're not texting me a lot. And that assumption is going to result in another set of behaviours. Okay, well, do I wait it out and see if that behaviour changes? Do I try and give them more reassurance that I am into them? Or give it more time and see whether, you know, the texting picks up? Or if I assume that they do like me, maybe I just express that I have a want and a need around more texting and see how they respond to it. So when we look at someone's behaviour, we can make assumptions about how they feel or what's going on with them. And then how we decide to respond to that is entirely dependent on the assumptions that we've made or how we've read those behaviours from the other person. But those are very clouded on our own beliefs and how we would handle the situation. So often, even though there's several ways of interpreting someone not texting us very much, we will likely make an assumption about what's going on in that situation based on our past experiences, how we would handle it, and often a lot of fear as well. So we might look at something more negatively if we're triggered or have had, negative dating experiences in the past. And then through that projection, we pick some behaviour, and it can be that we end up, sabotaging a situation purely because we've made these assumptions based on how we would handle something or our past experience. And it can affect our confidence as well. So if we assume that someone will act a certain way if they like us and we don't see that behaviour, as I mentioned before, we can end up internalising that, thinking it's to do with us, we're not good enough, we're not worthy for them, etc., rather than a more positive assumption, which is that they could just be playing a bit hard to get and it will change, or they've just got things going on at the moment, or maybe they're not emotionally available for a relationship, etc. And I just wanted to give a quick example actually on how you don't necessarily know how someone feels about you based on their behaviour. So one thing that we see quite a lot is people will add somebody on Instagram and be looking to see if they look at their stories. And now we also be looking at, in the example we've talked about, how often someone is texting them, how many questions, etc. Back at times when I've been dating and I've been feeling insecure, I personally have texted someone less if I'm really interested in them, because it's brought up fear and insecurity about, or I'm more attached to that person and where it's going, and therefore I've felt more in control by pulling my energy back and playing hard to get, which didn't actually help create a healthy connection in those instances, and it came through insecurity. But actually I was a lot more natural around people that I wasn't as initially interested in, because I just felt like I could be myself. I wasn't as attached to where it was going and like validation from that person, which is why we talk about that topic so much, that the most attractive you is just a relaxed, authentic version of you. And we did do a video on why do people chase me who I'm not that interested in, and it's exactly for that reason, because you're your most fun, like playful, vivacious self when you are relaxed and enjoying it and not as attached to where it's going. And similarly, for me personally, when I've been dating, I haven't liked to have people that I've dated on Instagram until, we've been quite serious. But say there have been occasions where that's happened, I would mute those people so that I couldn't see their stories or posts, because I just wanted to get to know those people for what I was learning about them in person. And that's was my own personal way of approaching it, which doesn't work for everyone. Some people love going onto Instagram and, getting a feel for the person from their social media or other, social media channels, which is fine. But I'm sure that some people that I was talking to at that point maybe noticed that I was never looking at their stories and thought, oh, that's odd. Like, is she interested in me whatsoever? But actually it was because I was interested, and it was just my personal way of approaching it that I didn't look at their Instagram stories. So that just goes to show that you don't always know how someone feels just because of their actions. And that's why it's so important to focus more on what you want, what makes you happy, and just taking the best possible interpretation, because usually that ends up being true and it doesn't end up being about you whatsoever. So what do we do instead? We've talked about the problem that we see in dating, which is that people spend too much time overanalyzing someone's behaviours and making assumptions. What do we do instead of doing that? Well, what we would suggest doing is looking at it from a more neutral, calm, centered perspective, and try and observe the behaviour neutrally, which is very difficult because we can't really look at anything completely neutrally because we always have our beliefs which fall into our perception. But what we mean by observing is that rather than jumping to an assumption based on how we would respond to something or past experience, think about, okay, this is the behaviour I'm seeing. So just write, maybe even write it down very factually. This is the behaviour I'm seeing. They're not texting me as much as I would like. What are some of the potential explanations for that? And, we just went through a few. Could be avoidant, it could be they're not that into me, could be they're not emotionally available, but it could be they're just playing hard to get, or that they are more shy and they're getting to know stages and it will change over time, right? Or infinite other explanations, but let's pick a few. We would suggest picking the most positive one of these. And the reason we say that is because it's the best thing for your own internal confidence and self-worth. And, well, one, it's the best thing for your confidence and self-worth because you're not taking anything personally from how they're behaving. You're usually, when you take the most positive assumption of what's going on, it is more about what's going on with them individually, and it's something that they're going through and it's not about you. So first, it makes us feel better. And dating should be enjoyable. So this is an enjoyable way to think about not just dating, but you can use this for other areas of life too. So pick the most positive explanation so that you're not taking it personally. And then secondly, think about what is it that I want out of the situation and how would I then respond based on the most positive set of assumptions and what I want. So if we're going to go back to that someone's not texting me much example, let's say we take the assumption that they're just playing hard to get early on and that as the connection builds and we get to know each other, that will change and they actually do like texting. And it's more to do with them and their insecurities than it is to do with us. We feel confident, powerful, we know that they like us, we're still feeling good. Well, what do we want? Okay, well, we like more texting in this theoretical scenario, but we really like the person. So we're going to decide to trust them, make the best assumptions possible, feel good within ourselves. And then maybe the next time we see them, rather than being defensive or hurt, offended, we might just say to them, look, where are you on texting? How much do you like to text? Because I really love to exchange texts with you every few hours throughout the day. That makes me feel really loved, really wanted, really appreciated, and make it a positive thing, right? It makes me feel really good to hear from you throughout the day, and it makes me really excited to see you again, and I love our conversations. And ask the other person, how do you feel about it? And then you'll get more information from having that conversation. But also you're communicating in a very healthy way where you're expressing a want or a need. You're coming from a place of confidence and self-worth that this is something you want and need in a relationship and you deserve it. And that's why you're communicating it. And you're giving that other person an opportunity to show up in the way that you're asking for and improving the communication between you at the same time and the dynamic between you. So it's going to get you closer to a solution and moving the relationship forward rather than jumping to a negative assumption about them or about their feelings for you, and maybe then deciding from there not to communicate with them, just to cut it off, or taking it very personally and it feeling bad within yourself. So, in summary, you can't always tell, or you cannot tell, what the motivations behind a behaviour are. You can only control your response to it. But our suggestion would be to try and observe it from as neutral, calm, centered place as possible. Make the most positive assumption about the behaviour that isn't personal to you, because that feels good and it also tends to bring out the best in them and the dynamic. And then figure out how you want to respond to it based on what do you want from the situation? What do you want from a dating dynamic or from a relationship? And what set of actions or response is going to get you closest to that? And then go ahead and do that and see how you get along. But by assuming the best in somebody, you usually bring that out of them. And if you were to put yourself into that other person's shoes, maybe you're not texting a lot because you're busy with work or stressed, etc. What's going to be the most attractive to you? Is it someone who communicates that they want a need in a positive way and says, oh, I love hearing from you, it makes me feel really good? Or is it going to be someone who complains to you and says, oh, I don't hear from you enough, that makes me feel shit about myself, like I need to hear more from you? Or is it going to be someone that, you know, equally pulls away, or you don't hear from them anymore and you yourself don't know what happened because you're maybe someone who doesn't naturally text as much, and suddenly, you know, you're not hearing from that person anymore. So really think about what's attractive to you and what someone who is really secure and confident would do in handling that situation. And don't take any of it personally. So I hope that helped. Would love to hear some of your reactions. If you've experimented with this, how you found it, or if you've got any dating scenarios that you're unsure of, drop a comment down below and would love to talk to you about it. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.